Winds rake across the headlands and disrupt the skies, sucking breath from our noses and mouths. Vultures, gulls, ravens hang in the sky, riding the thermals, slowly cycling, beaks cocked until wide wings suddenly tip. In the upwelling of air where sea and cliff face meet, healthcare and housing, crises of immigration, racism, politics, prisons, plundering communities, ravaging our lives. Whitecaps rise and stagger across the impassive plain of the sea. I lean out in free fall, then pump my strange new wings.
Bush lightning, Lost Pipe lightning, Jack Smith lightning, Albion River lightning, Horse lightning, Orr Series lightning, Montgomery Flat lightning, Alder Creek lightning, Wagers lightning, Mendocino lightning complex fire, summer solstice 2008, Summit fire, Santa Cruz Mountains, May 2008. Rocky Fire, Jerusalem Fire, Valley Fire, Lake and Napa Counties, September 2015. Redwood Valley Complex Fire, Cherokee Fire, Tubbs Fire, Atlas Fire, Nuns Fire, Northern California Firestorm, October 2017. Ranch Fire, River Fire, Pawnee Fire, Mendocino Complex Fire, July 2018. Camp Fire, The Loss of Paradise, Northern California, November 2018. Kincaid Fire, Sonoma County, October 2019. CZU Lightning Complex Fire, Santa Cruz Mountains, August 2020. Glass Fire, Napa, Sonoma, and Solano Counties, September 2020.
Heavy lifting. This is the pause I am flying in, flying hard so as not to fall to earth. Apparently, grief is not a calm, but a huge effort. Letter from a friend. Heavy lifting. It's hard to convey the crisis that happened to us back in the early 21st century. The multiple crises, the concatenation of disasters, the wounding, the beginning of the ending of the wounding, the unraveling of all that had gone before. That we were already carrying the burden of the dying off of the polar bears and the failing of the glaciers, that was hard enough. But it was when the birds began to fall out of the sky, emaciated, desperate, if not already dead, that we realized. We were no longer living in the time of prophecy, no longer in the theory of it all. It was unfolding all around us, one heart stop after another, a chain reaction of seemingly helpless events. We had poisoned the well, and just because we couldn't conceive of it doesn't mean that it didn't happen. It just means that we couldn't conceive of it. Because the evidence, there it was, looking up. From this time, we date a different life. The stories we told our children changed at this time. Our dreams changed. Some of us stopped dreaming. Others registered guns or took part in compromised immune systems. And out of this arose a powerful and dangerous tendency, a hiccup in history, a scratch in the record's fine vinyl grooves that caused it to skip and repeat unerringly, so that while some of us were remembering, were touching our faces to the glass, others were forgetting, or not so much forgetting as to never have been taken in those events that were more than consciousness could bear. We lived in that nervous slice between forgetting and the inevitable. This was the place we were brought to, where we could stand and look out and call out to our children. This was the place where we lived and where we ate and made love amidst emergency vehicles and fraud and the study of legal briefs, among our most sacred texts that had become practically useless to us. They were all on fire anyway. Birds were at one time used as weapons of war. They would be doused with flammable fluid and lit on fire and sent into the enemy's lines. Incendiary birds could change the fate of battles. Everywhere we went, there was this upwelling of the things of the earth. Butterflies, yet the leafing out of the oak, the composition of new forms of music, but also tombstones, defunct tractors, oil tankers run aground, the bellies of salamanders, the windows without glass. We will make do with what we are given, a grammar of what exists, in which grief is a room locked up within the emptiness of the sky. You who come after us will carry the earth on your shoulders, as birds carry the air and are carried. Be lifted by these things that broke us.
My grandmother's house. My grandmother's house was built as a long series of rooms, of which the first, the entry, was almost unfurnished, except for a single rug, a large, thick, soft rug of a deep burgundy color. Although in other memories it is an enormous, multicolored rag rug. Such is the way of memory. On it I used to sit and construct houses of cards out of the poker deck left over from her endless card games. Sometimes I would manage 2 stories, and once I achieved a 3-story structure. Card houses are tricky to build. They are a dare and a risk, and then one card too many or placed without the proper intake of breath, and floof, that house has been swept aside. On the morning after the election, but deep in that morning, the part of the dawn that can become stranded in the dark, I woke in the body of the man elected. He had not invaded me. Instead, I knew I had invaded him. And I lay in a misery of his putrid intestines, and his heart was a rosary of laughing skulls, and his mind was my mind. And I felt his penile rod sagging, and his bladder full, and his wind trapped in a kind of circus that had neither animal nor acrobat. Clowns came and went. Some of them had the unmistakable faces that appear on our paper money. I knew I could no longer sleep, not just that particular morning, but ever again. I knew that dreaming would become one more thing wrapped around cans made out of the metal of the earth and then sold and transported. It became a time when shoes and automatic weapons were offered at special prices with similar sales strategies, but nobody could buy them because everything had stopped. For a time, the streets were empty. The freeways made nothing, and there was an eerie, protracted quiet. We were no longer living in the forgotten times. There was this tremendous pause. Many parts of our memories turned in on themselves. We did not open our doors to strangers. No, we also shut our doors against our friends, and in order to protect them, our families. And it was in the midst of this inhuman quiet, this pausing of the restlessness, that the birds could be heard singing. In those places where the plague festered most seriously, there was not enough room, after a while, in the morgues. There was not enough room in the cemeteries. Bulldozers that were no longer being used to excavate the basements of empty buildings were used to dig mass grave pits on Hart Island. But we had seen and heard the emptiness, the quiet, the nothingness, and it stuck with us. Yes, we had forgotten. No, we could not hold all the memories at once. Yes, we were ourselves mothers, sometimes sons, infants, grandfathers, and in the face of this we were also empty. We were criminals, victims, those who explain things, those who justify things, those who suffer. The playgrounds were not just vacant, they were crisscrossed with police tape. In this great void, there was no forgetting because there was no remembering. There was only the news. And amidst this upwelling of memory, the shattering of silence, the fires came again. The fires that should have surprised no one, yet they came and shocked everyone anyway. Fierce, unforgiving, and swept and charred and melted and incinerated and chewed through forests, houses, apartment complexes, billboards, trucks, swimming pools, the bodies of 2 children who had grown up in a land where memory had become weapons. And out of this arsenal of heat in which people were still sickening and dying of the plague, and in which people were now leaving their houses and protesting, in spite of the danger and because of the danger, and in which extinction had always been primary among the secret weapons, migratory birds began to fall out of the sky, dead by the hundreds of thousands. Do we need to be told the name of this time? We name the fires. We name the hurricanes as they increase in intensity, as they burn and wash away. Forgetfulness. This is about arriving and departing. This is about remembering and forgetting. This is about trying to live in a nervous slice of history.
House of water, house of feathers, house of light. House of water. I could live here, in this place, these walls, this echoing of my voice over the surface of the water, a cistern of impeccable desire. I could live here, in this house. Everything that came before birth would belong, came to be fed, could have their meal, without the need of a separate bowl. The table would become their bowl, kind of messy cleanup, but elegant. I could live here, in this house meant for water. I could live here, in this house of feathers. See how I make my way over the dry earth, over the dead leaves, and what do I return with but a bouquet of feathers, mostly turkey, some hawk, juveniles, and least of all, owl. I could live here, in this house intended for feathers in the arms of a tree quite easily. I could live with the woman who comes to bless the water, who comes to ask forgiveness of the rain, who arrives with skirts that are in the process of becoming water, on my way to becoming a dream, or a hummingbird's ecstatic lilt, or a foxglove on a morning when winter is far away. But I could not live in this house of excrement, in this house of shit. We are not intended to live among our own evidence. I could live with feathers and with books. I could live with the avocado and her sister in the melting of butter and all the swiftness and ease which dawn makes of night. A great nostalgia of silences and satellites I could live. Could you not? We could live. I could live in a house made of newspapers. But why would I? Really, it isn't news we are longing for. I could live in a house of light. You could also live, but let's just say it might be a long time. They were permeated, the walls, with a stench of rancid smoke. I have lived in a house of mirrors. As a child, I thought, that's what I wanted to be when I grew up. A house in which we laugh and giggle and forget for a while what is fear. I could live in this house of memory, even though nobody I ever knew or was kin to had such a memory, even if the memories are sad, perhaps especially if they are sad, because this is a sad time we live in. And if you are here, moon, star, blanket, gathering the memories with welcoming gestures, I could live in this house where memory is welcome.